All right, so this video is an intro to polar coordinates. So before we had some x and y, and now we're going to have an r theta. So let's look at Desmos to see what we're talking about here. So you're going to be given a radius. That's the first number, the number 2. And what that just means is that you have to think about a circle being here. So this would be a radius of 2, a radius of 3, 4, and 5. So it's this circle, and along this circle you have all these different points, see? So the way to lock in any of those points is to give an angle. So our point is at a radius of 5 with an angle of 30. If you move the angle, now it's the one at 150, 330, and you could just keep going around forever, see? 660. So it's just being locked in that way. We can even go negative. So that would be negative 60 degrees. But you need two different coordinates here in order to lock in that point. So the distance from the origin, that's our radius, and the angle it makes. So again, all of these points are possible with a radius of 5, but the one that we want has an angle of negative 60. So that's it. You just think of the circle. So if we had a radius of 6, that would be it, 6 comma 60, right there. We can even do radians. All right, so let's try a few. So we have the first point is 3 comma 270 degrees. So you want to think about the circle that has a radius of 3. So that would be 1, right? That would be 2, and that would be 3. So we are on this circle for our first point. Okay. So its degree is 270. So you just have to go to 270, or right here, and then to 3. So this point right here has a radius of 3, and the angle is 270 degrees. That's it. So if we had 6 and 30 degrees, we want to go to 30 degrees, and then you count out 6. So there is 30 degrees, and we count out 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you put a point, and that would be the radius of 6, 30 degrees. Pretty simple. All right, let's try one with a negative angle now. So 1 and negative 45. So let's go to negative 45. So that would be positive 45. So going back, this would be negative 45. And then our radius is 1. So we would count out 1 right here. So that would be 1 comma negative 45 degrees. So if we had negative 270, so that would be positive 270 going all the way around. So now we go in the reverse direction, and we would be here, right on this line, and then we count out 3. So right there, that would be 3 comma negative 270 degrees. All right, what about a negative radius? So it's the same idea. The angle is 60. So I always like doing the angle first. So 60 is right on this line. But instead of going 1, 2, 3, we go a negative radius. So this is positive. This would be negative 1. So right here, where's 60? Right there. 1, 2, 3. So right here, this would be negative 3, 60 degrees. So it's on that exact same 60 degree angle, but with a negative radius. All right. So right here, you can see that the radii can be negative. You can still see it's 60 degrees here, and then negative 3. So you can see where, as I move the angle around, we're really here. This is 120, but instead of counting out positive 3, we have to go negative 3. See how it works around? You can kind of see the angle clicking here, and then how we go out in the opposite direction. So if that was 300 degrees, this would be positive 3. So the opposite side is negative 3. So you can see you can give multiple locations for a point. So from here to here is also 120. So we could call this point 3 comma 120 degrees as well, because it would have a radius of positive 3 with an angle of 120. Both of them give us the location of it. All right, so I want you to hit pause now, and I want you to give me the location of these two. So I want you to plot them and label them. So hit pause now. So there is 3 comma 180, and then this is the trickiest they get. I give you both negative. So again, that would be positive 135. So we're going to go to negative 135. So that would be a positive 5. So that would be negative 5. Negative 5, 135. So again, looking at Desmos, remember this would be like 120. So I could put in a positive 135 here. Not 1435. So there's 135, but we need to go to negative 135. So right there is negative 135. So that would give us a positive 5, but we need negative 5. So putting a negative in there puts us over here. So you can see going back and forth, that's positive, that's negative, positive, negative. But the angle itself is how you want to graph it first. And then just flip the sign. So positive, negative. And that's how we get that angle. So what I want to do now is a little bit of practice. So if you really understand these now, we should be able to give 2 more point representations of this point. So first what we're going to do is graph it, and then we're going to give 2 different ways of actually giving that exact same location. So 3 and 90 degrees. So again, we would go to 90 degrees right here, and then we would count out 3. So right there is our point. Right there. So that would be 3 comma 90 degrees. So how else could we do this? Well, we can do a negative angle. So keeping the same radius, remember, if that is 90 degrees, then that would be negative 270. So we could say this is another way of graphing that point. You can also say negative 90 degrees. So that would put us here, right? Or you could say 270, your choice. Let's do 270. See, different ways of doing this. So we could say 270 degrees. But if I put in positive 3, that puts me here. I need it to be over there. So if I put a negative 3 in, there you go. So 3 different ways of graphing the same point. 3 different representations of that point. So let's try it again. So negative 1 comma 120. So again, we go to 120. Right here. And so that right along 120 would be 1, but we don't want 1, we want negative 1. So if we just follow that right across to there, it's a little bit hard to see. Let's zoom in. So we just cross it right there, right to there. So that would be our point, negative 120. Okay, so now you could easily see that, well, it's on 300, right? And we already knew that's 120, so that's 60, so that's 60. So we can just say now 1 comma 300 degrees. That would be another way of saying it. In fact, I like that a lot better than using the negative. But we can also say 1 and then negative 60 degrees. So I just need 3 points. It's playing around with them is what's good for this. So let's try this one. Now we have our radians. So to get used to it as well, we've been doing degrees because they're nice, but it's the same idea. So if you have 5 pi over 4, right, we just have to locate that angle. So our pi over 4s are right here. So 1 pi over 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're on this line right here. That's our 5 pi over 4. And now we just need 7. So if we count out 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right there. Put a dot. That would be our point, 7, 5 pi over 4. So again, we can use a negative angle to represent it. So pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. So that's what we have here. 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3. So we can use negative 3 pi over 4 because we're going in the negative direction, and then 7. Or we could just say, well, that's pi over 4, and then I flip it. So if I say pi over 4 and then put a negative 7, that would also give me the same location. All right, so that's all it is. 5 pi over 4, and then flip it. So here, let me just show you this and what I'm talking about here with this guy, because this one was really hard to see. Let's look at it with polar coordinates. So we had a negative 1 and 120. So you can see we're at 120 our angle, and then we flip it over to negative 1. Right? And so we could just say, well, let's make that a radius of 1, and then go to 300. See, same location. Or we could leave it as a radius of 1 and then go to, if it'll let me, there we go, -60, not 70, 60, see, right here. So positive 1, so there's a lot of different ways to get to that location. Okay, so that's polar coordinates. Thank you.